恩雨移動內容多元化，只要攞起手機就能夠讓祝福流動，將福音傳送俾家人同朋友。快啲嚟掃一掃呢個 QR code， 下載最新推出嘅恩雨移動 Apps， 免費攞迎新禮品啦！
好細個就賣毒品。
We took over the school. If you were grabbing drugs, you were grabbing it from our gang. Okay, I'm gonna go all in, sell drugs for the rest of my life.
亦染上毒癮。
You have to crush it, you have to sniff it. That gets you high.
瘦到骷髏骨咁樣，命都唔要就要嗰包嘢啊！
That's when all the health issues all attacked at the same time. You fall to the floor, it just feels like you're getting stabbed. My nose bleeding, basically overdosed. I could have died like in the basement.
呢度係位於加拿大多倫多嘅戒毒中心晨曦會，由基督教團體所籌辦嘅晨曦會，以基督信仰為本，為戒毒人士提供免費住宿同戒毒課程。張文浩就係其中一位受惠者。
First time that you come into this room, it's usually like a sad moment. But then, like eventually, when you start to get integrated and you start to, get into the program, this room becomes a very special room because a lot of the times, a lot of the studying, a lot of the devotions, singing together, and all that kind of stuff happen in this room.
晨曦會於1964年喺香港成立，其後發展至世界各地。喺多倫多嘅晨曦會，戒毒人士喺中心住18個月，先至能夠完成戒毒課程。喺呢一度，戒毒人士會一齊學習同生活。
Aside from doing the classes and stuff like that, and maybe playing sports, we spend a lot of time cooking, making up dishes actually, because we couldn't afford all the best material and all the best ingredients.
除咗上堂，戒毒人士仲會參與勞動工作，幫助中心嘅日常運作同發展。
And yeah, we spent like a whole summer just digging. So, but yeah, we grow fresh vegetables, and it's a lot harder than you think. This is one of the projects that we were asked to do. Basically, it's just a shed, and then, but yeah, it was a bunch of drug addicts who didn't have any experience with building things, and we managed to put together this shed. These are the things that helped us to kind of find our worth again and just see that we're able to accomplish things.
喺多倫多成長嘅張文浩 Andrew， 少年嘅時候就開始吸毒，亦試過進入唔同嘅戒毒所戒毒，但係都以失敗告終。
You can sign out of those rehab centers. You just have to be back by 9 o'clock. And I tell my friend however many minutes, and I would meet them at Chartwell. Grab a half ounce of K, or maybe even an ounce sometimes, bring it back to the rehab center, and I just do it. At those rehab centers, the way that they test for drugs in the system, their only capabilities were only for methamphetamines, heroin, cocaine, and marijuana, right? So I could do as much K as I wanted to do, and they would never find it. Coming out of those things, even though I graduated from the programs, right? I was doing more drugs than I did when I entered the program.
佢係索得好勁，咁索到自己咧就傻下，自己衝出間屋添。佢自己而家我諗自己都唔知。我係捉住翻佢，咁覺得係唔妥啦，好唔妥，即刻叫 ambulance， 好在及時救翻佢咯。
嚟自一個基督教家庭嘅文浩，自細讀書成績優異，之後因為學業遇上困難，加上父母忙於經營餐館，佢就認識咗一班損友，開始吸毒同販毒。
The school that I went to was very, very gang heavy. I was recruited into a gang in grade 7, grade 8. I stopped trying in school and I left church as well. I had pretty much tried every type of drug, K and ecstasy. Those were the two drugs that I enjoyed the most. You have to crush it and then you have to sniff it. And it's the swallowing of the chemicals that gets you high. Knowing that I was so addicted to it, I began selling drugs. At first, it was just to kind of afford free drugs. So like I could, sell 5 of these and then I can have 1 for free.
我哋見到佢嘅情形，即係呢樣嘢事，哇瘦到骷髏骨咁樣，命都唔要就要嗰包嘢啊！一個人吸毒，一家人受罪。我同我老婆都去嘗試再嘗試，咁勸極都唔聽啦，唔止1次踢出門口，係3幾次都有。
因為染上毒癮而同家人決裂，文浩15歲就離開屋企，再冇返學，開始投靠社團。
Angel 嘅人其實都係比較簡單，貪玩，真係好似佢講啦，睇得多嗰啲香港嗰啲古惑仔電影多，咁於是乎我諗讀書開始有少少跟唔上啦，咁佢咪跟咗嗰啲人一齊咁樣，咁當然嗰啲條都係不歸路啦。
At first, there was like a lot of like promises almost. Like it was like, oh, you're gonna enter into this like brotherhood, right? You're gonna have this family that's outside of your own family. For the first half year, like I was just living from couch to couch, and then my gang also had a nightclub. I was basically the janitor of the nightclub, so I had to clean all the people throwing up and all that kind of stuff. But then I did meet somebody that I called him my godbrother at the time, and I would say like really saved my life at that time. He was rich because he made a lot of illegal money. He just took care of everything for me. I didn't have to pay any rent, even with my selling drugs and everything. He was definitely a support for me. Like he supported me with the money. I was like about 16, 17 years old, and I had made the conscious decision, go all into this life, sell drugs for the rest of my life, thinking I can make it like big as a gangster.
喺社團打滾咗1年多之後，文浩決定返屋企，而且重返校園。可惜佢仍然執迷不悟。
And I went back home and I tried to go back to school. And then that was probably changed my kind of like gang role because nobody was selling drugs. When I got to school, there was like maybe like 1 drug dealer. And so after a month, I had told my boss and everything that like, there is a wide opportunity here, right, to take over. Like that's when I was given more drugs to sell. If you were in that area, if you were grabbing drugs, you were grabbing it from our gang. And then I eventually got kicked out of the school because I got arrested 3 times.
被捕後，文浩以為要鋃鐺入獄，但係最後贏咗官司，唔使坐監。為咗慶祝，佢吸食咗大量毒品。
And I had done a lot. All the drugs laid out on the table. So I passed out, like I basically overdosed, and I was like on the floor with both my nose bleeding. And then my dad came downstairs to find me, try to like splash water on me and everything, right? And I wasn't like responding, right? And so they called the ambulance. Yeah, I could have died like in the basement if he never came down. Once I got released from the hospital, they arrested me on the spot. Like my parents were there. My mom was like hugging me with like my hands cuffed.
再次被捕，文浩就決定去戒毒所。可惜戒毒唔單止唔成功，佢吸食毒品仲變本加厲，以致身體機能嚴重受損。
This was probably when I was like 21-ish. That's when all the health issues all attacked at the same time. Decay affecting everything, whether it's your bladder, your intestines, your ribs, your everything here gets affected, right? And so the first thing that we ever felt was the stomach pains. Once you find one position, you can't move from it, right? And so you fall to the floor and you have to be like in a fetal position and like keep like your ribs like kind of like compressed, or else it just feels like you're getting stabbed. I basically lived my entire day on the bed with my head against the wall, cross-legged like this. Even when you sleep, that's how I sleep. There's no possible way to sleep flat. I spend the day like this, so I just have my little phone or a laptop or something, and I put it like right here, and I watch things. But the sickest part about all this is that all the while I'm doing drugs, like constantly, because my brain, the voice inside my head is telling me you'll feel better once you do drugs, right? Like this pain will go away. I was like a ghost down there, like I was just dying, but nobody knew. I didn't want to talk to anybody, and then I didn't want anybody to see me either, right? Because like I was like a mess.
除咗腸胃出現劇痛之外，文浩嘅膀胱亦出現問題，經常要小便。有一次，文浩生日，一家人同佢慶祝，喺開車去餐廳嘅途中。
In that short period of time, 7 minutes drive, right? Maybe 8. I had to make my dad stop 4 times, like a dog pee by. One time was a fire hydrant. When they saw that, again, broke their heart, right? Like they already saw how I looked, kind of walking like this, like a ghost basically, right? Like a ghoul. My mom was crying the whole time. She was just like, she's like pleaded, like they literally pleaded with me. They said, please like get help.
見到文浩咁嘅狀況，佢父母都十分心痛，爸爸更加內疚，覺得因為多年嚟自己忙於揾錢而忽略咗個仔。作為父母，雖然文浩屢勸不改，但係佢哋對佢始終不離不棄。
個媽咧淨係講一句咧就話：因為佢自己唔好都係好，佢係喺我肚10個月先出嚟，你感受唔到咧？我感受到，所以一力撐佢個仔，我一定要去撥翻佢正路。咁我係一個妻奴啦，咁老婆話乜嘢，咁我咪順住佢去咯。講到個教會原來有神蹟呢回事咯，叫佢初嗰時真係佢力抗得好緊要嘅。
今日文浩喺教會同一班年輕人喺埋一齊，佢哋喺度佈置禮堂。文浩同年輕人有講有笑，打成一片。而家文浩已經成功戒毒，而且重返教會。呢個咁大嘅轉變當中有好多原因。首先係佢醒覺到毒品對佢身體造成嘅傷害。
Like a waking moment, I was just like, I'm just gonna die here, right? Like I'm back in my position thinking about it. Do I want to live like this for the rest of my life? I was like, okay, you know what? Let's see what this rehab's about. Because at the time, Operation Dawn had constantly promoting. They sent Henry, and he is the first person in Toronto that went to Operation Dawn. In Taiwan, he shared his testimony with me. And that sharing of the testimony is really the turning point. Because my circle of influence were always gangsters, drug dealers, or drug addicts. And so now I've had this person sitting in front of me who has done more drugs than me, harder drugs than me, and done it for a longer time even. But he was sitting there in front of me sober, right? And that was like, it blew my mind. And then he kept mentioning, he's like, oh, the gospel saved my life, right? The gospel changed me. And so I still didn't believe him, right? Like I was just like, okay, but like, I just knew that something was there.
聽到過來人嘅分享，文浩決定去晨曦會開始一個為期18個月嘅戒毒療程。期間，佢要同其他戒毒人士住喺戒毒中心，唔可以擅自離開。
Like God's plan to kind of take me out of Scarborough, take me out of like community in that old environment, right? And then put me into a place where my relationship with Him to begin. Going to be alone, time that I could reflect. Because there's nothing else here but the Bible. So like at first it was like immersed in the Word like that, and God speaks to you through His Word. That was like the beginning part of that transformation, I guess, that Christ had planned here.
剛入嚟身體就好差嘅，個樣望落好冇精神啊。咁佢哋一般都係嘅，可能佢哋5至10分鐘啊去一次廁所啊。當然啦，因為 Angel 佢有啲嘅幫派背景。咁起碼其實佢嚟晨曦會嘅時候，佢都覺得佢真係想改變，都聽話嘅，即係上堂嘅時候，咁佢都留心。
And when I first got here, also the teacher here, he was like this Taiwanese general in the army, and so he was very, very strict. We have basically like 2 acres of land, and we have to like, collect all the grass, and if there's grass flying somewhere else, we have to go collect it, put it back into the pile. Looking back, the strictness of that teacher actually helped me.
過一個有紀律嘅生活，令文浩成功戒除毒癮。另一方面，透過學習聖經同埋群體生活，佢體會到神嘅愛同真實。喺戒毒期間，文浩遇到一件好傷心嘅事，就係媽媽嘅乳癌復發。
I was super like devastated because I know in my heart, even though she won't never tell me, she won't say it, right? Cancer has so much to do with stress. And I know for those 10 years, there wasn't a night she would sleep because she was always afraid that the phone would ring, that I'd be dead or I'd be in jail. She told me something that right now we're both sick, right? We're both really, really sick. And, right, but there's nothing that we can do together. You have to stay here and you have to fight, and mom's gonna fight at home, and God will bring us back together at the end. That's exactly how she did this whole thing. At that point, by that time, I had just, anywhere we went, I was like, please pray for my mom, please pray for my mom. And then she called me back in the evening. I remember like I was outside playing basketball with the other brothers. Good news, My mom can go through the operation right away. When we heard that, like I put it on speaker, right? And like me and the, like these all sweaty from playing basketball just broke down and started crying. We're just like, wow, just crying and then we prayed right away and we thank God.
原本為期1年半嘅戒毒課程，文浩因為中心裏面人際關係嘅問題，提早半年就離開。之後佢立志重新做人，喺家人開嘅餐館打工。不過大概1年之後，佢終於抵受唔住引誘。
第二次再出事就話佢個大佬咧就響監獄出嚟，又喺度搞嘢，又拉翻埋嗰班友，就同佢啲所謂大佬住啦。咁嗰班人就Uncle Auntie， 我睇住佢啦，唉，睇住佢死啦。
佢媽媽打電話俾我，佢話 Angel 即係有吸毒，即係喺個 basement 度咁樣。咁但我一落去 basement 見到 Angel 都眼光光，因為佢 high 咗啊嘛。同佢媽媽爸爸傾咗幾句，跟住我話我哋暫時都冇咩可以做到。咁我記得一祈禱嘅時候，佢妹喊，佢媽媽又喊。咁我就話其實我哋冇一個人能夠改變佢，如果佢唔係真真正正去認識耶穌。
喺呢一個時候，有一件事發生，促使文浩重回正軌。當爸爸憶述呢一個轉機嘅時候，深深覺得係一個神蹟。
就同人打交，咁啊人哋就報警，咁但係咧佢哋報完警咧打人嗰兩個，即係其中包括我個仔，佢已經走咗。3個禮拜之後咧，就有兩條差佬咧就上嚟，佢話CCTV 咧又影到有兩個人，唔知係咪你哋嘅人咧？咁開頭咧梗係唔認啦，咁啊差人咧就戳下佢，講下咧咁衰衰地咁就都話，咁都係我哋。
之後，文浩決意要離開社團同毒品，就下定決心返去晨曦會戒毒，並且完成咗1年半嘅課程。喺戒毒期間，佢更深體會到佢一直追求嘅就係信仰群體中嘅真摯關係。
In a place where I actually genuinely experience what true community is. Literally what I had been looking for all along, right? Because like back even with the gangs and everything, right? It was just looking for real brotherhood, right? Real community that's like supportive unconditionally and all that kind of stuff. But obviously joining a gang like didn't fill that void. Doing drugs never filled that void. But in Operation Dawn, where I really felt like Jesus filled that void through people, through scripture, and providing me this new place and a new chance at life.
咁第二次翻嚟又好唔同啦，真係好有決心係想改變。我覺得佢都係好追求啦。直至到後尾佢哋差唔多完，佢哋有幾個一齊傾咧，一個就想做社工，一個又想讀輔導咁樣。咁但係最後尾佢哋嘅結論就係話唔係喎，唔係輔導幫我嘅喎，又唔係社工幫我嘅喎，係耶穌幫我嘅喎。咁所以佢哋3個嗰陣時就決定咧，出嚟之後就去神學院進修。
為咗完成呢一個志願，文浩由中學12班讀起，再考入神學院，然後完成學士同碩士課程。對於已經放低書包又多年吸毒嘅佢，能夠成功全靠神嘅幫助。
God carried me through those years because like if it wasn't for God, for the Spirit, for prayer, like I would have flunked out like the first semester. You have a lot of exams and those I could not do because my memory from all the drugs, like I can't remember what I ate yesterday, right? Like so it was really, really tough. But it was fully God taking control. And at the same time, not only taking control of that part, but also opening up the doors for me in ministry.
We were searching for a children youth pastor. When you look at his past, with addiction, the life in the gangs, you might think that this would not be a person who would be suited for ministry, or you might think that this would be a person you want to keep your children and your youth away.
教會經過深入諮詢同探討，相信文浩係適當嘅人選，就安排佢參與兒童同青少年工作。而喺一次營會裏面，文浩過往嘅經歷就幫助咗唔少青少年人。
And so I shared my testimony, and then they would just kind of welcome whatever students wanted prayer or wanted just to talk or something. I had like a lineup of all these youth that wanted to talk to me, right? But it's not because like that I was anything special, but it was just because of that fact that they saw that I was open with them and they felt that they could be open with me. And then that night I heard everything from like eating disorders to like trying drugs to premarital sex.
I think this is all part of the transforming power of Christ. He can use that experience to bless our young people.
一神真係揀選佢去影響而家嘅年青人，佢哋而家係想知道啲我哋所謂好貼地嘅嘢啊嘛。佢而家講道啊，佢有啲感染力嘅，變咗啲年青人其實就會好想聽下佢嘅人生經驗啊咁樣。
You know, I truly believe this is where God called me, right, into a pastoral role within the church, right? But at the same time, I do feel like He also has that other calling for me, you know, serve in Operation Dawn or serve with some sort of organization that deals with addiction and recovery.
文浩而家唔單止喺教會做傳道人，仲會抽時間到晨曦會做義工，同人分享自己嘅經歷，能夠走到今日，文浩有咁嘅領會。
Seeing all the things that my parents did in terms of like not giving up, searching me out, right? That to me is Christ's love. And I definitely understand that to be like, you know, my mom's upbringing as a Christian and learning about that type of love, which is like a very sacrificial love, right? The way that she loved me, she chose to love me even despite all the things that I may have done to her health. If it wasn't for her understanding of what Christ's love is, then she wouldn't have ever showed that to me, and I would have never understood what the gospel is. And that same goes for my dad.
係我老婆始終唔放棄，我都係唔放棄。始終佢係你個仔，你冇可能話放棄你個仔。
家人無私嘅愛同忍耐係文浩可以成功戒毒其中一個關鍵，而更重要嘅係因為上帝嘅大能，令多次戒毒失敗嘅佢唔單止可以脫離毒海，更加成為其他人嘅祝福。
睇到自己個仔咧，可以話神蹟。佢而家戒咗咧，你一家人好舒服啦。
佢當時身體差到個地步，都唔知能唔能夠活落去。咁但係神今日改變佢，咁佢真係作為一個傳道人嘅時候，我覺得其實呢個都係一個好大嘅神蹟啦。
In that moment when I was most lost, He saved me. Just blows me away that like God is not somebody who just, you know, looks out for people who are nice, good to Him, right, righteous, but He's actually the one that goes out, right, and searches out the lost, right, searches out those who have disrespected Him, sinned against Him. Jesus really is the God of the lost, and He does everything to welcome them back into that love, into that fold, into that family. I've always experienced God through other people, right? Like whether it's the love or whether it's even like a message, a calling, an invite, right? Like, you know, it's always somebody that God has placed around me, right? Speaking into my life. And I thank God for all of them.
能夠由一個販毒嘅癮君子兼社團成員，成功戒毒歸正已經唔容易，然後再由絕學到學有所成，做咗一位傳道人就更加罕見。文浩生命改變嘅故事，見證咗上帝喺人嘅生命中所施行嘅神蹟。
多謝大家收睇恩雨之聲。如果想更多了解呢一個節目，歡迎打嚟我哋嘅熱線電話31064444，或者瀏覽我哋嘅節目網頁